والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحابه أجمعين. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. سبحانك لا فهم لنا إلا ما فهمتنا إنك أنت الجواد الكريم. ورب زدني علما. قال الإمام النووي رحمه الله تبارك وتعالى ونفعنا بعلومه في الدارين. قال باب حق الجار والوصية به. قال الله تعالى أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم واعبدوا الله ولا تشركوا به شيئا وبالوالدين إحسانا وبذي القربى واليتامى والمساكين والجار ذي القربى والجار الجنب والصاحب بالجنب وابن السبيل وما ملكت أيمانكم. So here Imam Nawawi rahmahullah ta'ala mentions a very appropriate chapter to follow the instruction of the kindness and the responsibility to one's family members and relatives. And now the next of kin in the family of humanity would be one's neighbors. And it's very significant how much importance neighbors are given in Islam. And this is a tradition which was pretty much found in all traditional cultures, but it has sort of evaporated from the face of the earth pretty much, ila mashallah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in this regard, and the title is the chapter of the rights of the neighbor and wasiyati, and giving leaving these sort of recommendations that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Rasul has instructed us, to observe in regards to the neighbors. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions وَعْبُدُ اللَّهِ وَلَا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا. Worship Allah, exercise ubudiyah, and we've talked about that quite extensively. And so just worship, it doesn't really give it the full and proper meaning, but for lack of a better singular word, this is generally used. Worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, serve Him and surrender to Him and be in His service continuously. وَلَا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا, and do not ascribe any partners to Him. And just after the order of Tawheed is the order of the kindness to the parents. وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا, and then to parents, ihsan. And this is not one place, this is a number of places Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala follows the first and primary order to His slaves to worship Him and Him alone and establish Tawheed, and thereafter kindness to the parents. وَبِذِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْيَتَامَى وَالْمَسَاكِينِ وَالْجَارِ ذِي الْقُرْبَى إِلَى آخِرِهِ. So then after parents, now, as we mentioned again, the relationships, and the closer they are, then the more emphasis is given. And so after the parents, then بِذِي الْقُرْبَى, and all of those people who have a qaraba, they have a relationship with you. We talked about that earlier. It could be a blood relationship from parents, it could be a relationship through the father alone or the mother alone, or from a marital relationship. وَالْيَتَامَى, and the orphans, وَالْمَسَاكِينَ, and the poor, وَالْجَارِ ذِي الْقُرْبَى, and the neighbor who is close, your next door neighbor, for example, those who are close to you. It could also mean the neighbor who actually is not only a neighbor but has a blood relationship with you. وَالْجَارِ الْجُنُبِ, and the neighbor which is a bit farther. Or it could also mean the neighbor which doesn't have another relationship in terms of actual blood relationship. So here we have the neighbors who are close and the neighbors who are farther. So it's also clarified in hadith that the neighbors who is closest to you, to your door, the door which is closest to your door, has the most rights on you. And then the next door, and in some riwayats it goes up to 40 doors. So suppose if everybody feels that 40 doors, 40 houses around me, these are my neighbors, these are my kinsmen, these are my, and I'm concerned about them, would there be poor people? Would there be people who would starve? Would there be people who would have really feel that sense of insecurity? And so obviously not, you see, but we've lost that. Obviously in this culture, now I was just talking to a friend, came to a young man who was just recently accepted Islam, mashallah, and he came up all the way from Oceanside just to visit. And so we were talking about, neighbors. We don't know our neighbors. This person lives 30 years next to somebody. He doesn't even know his name, let alone anything about him. Does he have any need? Is there any way I can be of assistance to him or something like that, So in our tradition, it's quite different, and we're going to see that in the next hadith, that to what extent Jibreel alayhi salam used to, emphasize the rights of the neighbors. And thereafter, there's also a kind of neighbor. One is a neighbor who lives next to you. Then there's another type of neighbor. وَالصَّاحِبِ بِالْجَنْبِ. Sahib, it basically literally means the person who's next to you. So this could be a partner in business. It could be an employee. It could be a colleague. It could be a fellow classmate. It could be someone who is traveling along with you. This is one of the things that attracted me to Islam. Traveling in the Muslim countries, somebody would get down and distribute nuts or eggs or something to everybody in the bus, and then come to find out the only relationship was La ilaha illallah Muhammad. They didn't know one another. This really, 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 really impressed me. You see, and it is very impressed, particularly in this day and age. So the person who is your companion in whatever context, wabn sabil, and the strangers, the travelers, person who is traveling along. In our tradition, a traveler comes, he has a right on me for 3 days. He's technically, he is supposed to be able to be the guest of anyone, anywhere, any Muslim for 3 days. After that, that's something above and beyond the call of duty. But, there's another thing that also attracted me to Islam. Case in point, in Libya, probably I've mentioned to some of it, I was just out in the middle of the desert, and it was sunset, and I was traveling to Benghazi, I think. And so I'm prepared to spend the night. And so a car finally came, but it turned into a side road. Then it stopped and it moved back, and it came up. And this fellow asked me, "Where are you staying tonight?" He didn't ask me, "Who are you? Where are you from? What are you doing here in the middle of nowhere? Where did you come from?" He said, "Where are you staying tonight?" I said, "Right here." He said, "No, sit down." So he took me to his house, a little mud hut, with 2 rooms. And I was a member of the family for the night. This is the society of Islam. It's not about fancy infrastructure and a lot of money spent. It's about big hearts. That's what it's about. And this is the teaching of the Quran. So if these seemingly simple, rudimentary principles if we live by them and display them, it will be more than kafi to dispel all this Islamophobia and all this other. They don't know us, so they're afraid of us. A man is an enemy of what he doesn't know. So when we become known by our qualities, then everyone would love to flock, except those whose minds and hearts are totally perverted. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to understand these things, adapt these principles, and make them characteristics that are part and parcel of our being. Ameen thumma ameen wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin wa assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.